Morning. Let's come to order and go on the record, please. I'm Charlotte Mitchell, Chair of the Utilities Commission. With me this morning are Commissioners Duffley, Hughes, McKissick, Kimwright, Brawley, and Tucker. In compliance with State Government Ethics Act, I remind members of the Commission of our duty to avoid conflicts of interest and inquire at this time as to whether any member has a known conflict with respect to the matters coming before us this morning. The record will reflect that no conflicts have been identified, so we will proceed with Public Staff Item 1.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Tommy Williamson with the Public Staff Energy Division. Item 1 is an application from Dominion Energy North Carolina for approval of the Residential Efficient Products Marketplace DSME program. Public staff has reviewed the application and recommends approval as filed. Thank you.
Move approval of staff recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the item be approved as recommended by the public staff. Any questions? Commissioner Tucker.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps you're not the one to answer this, but it being new, just reading through this, I see this as phase 11. How did the other 10 go?
They're all still in process. If you look, the way Dominion does it, it's every year they come out and that's the new rollout. So every year is a new phase. So we go back to phase 1 and we're up to, actually, I believe phase 12 will be later this year. So each year has its own phase. There'll be various programs that, there may be very few, there may be quite a few that come in, or multiple that come in. So if actually in my previous testimony last year, we've got a grid in the back of it. I'd be glad to reference it for you. That shows all the Dominion programs that are currently active and the phases in which they were rolled out.
Okay, that's fair. Just a question. So each and every time they introduce a phase, there is an increased cost recovery for each one of those phases?
Well, I'd say it's not that it's necessarily increased, it's that it's the cost recovery for that phase of programs. So there may be programs that are already in place. And then, so this coming year, there'll be their rider proceeding. And so this will be the phase, I believe phase 12. So everything that's active will be considered for cost recovery during that phase 12 proceeding. There may be new programs that are added later, like in particular, this one is coming under phase 11.
Okay, so it's fair to say with each new phase that you say is already mapped out, there'll be an exponential cost recovery from now on every time a new phase is introduced. Is that what I'm understanding?
Commissioner, I don't know if I would characterize it as an exponential, but there is the costs that are being asked for recovery will be included in that phase. So there'll be some programs. We just closed several programs earlier this year, but they were replaced by or consolidated. Dominion actually went through a period where they had quite an expansion of number of programs and largely driven by legislation in Virginia. And so what we've seen here recently is more of a consolidation of those programs. So now we got fewer programs, but they're coming in under a more portfolio-based approach.
Okay. Well, I certainly haven't delved into those. As long as you understand them, I'm good with that. I do see where the Virginia Commission was mentioned here. In this phase, we have heard a lot in public hearings about rooftop solar. Is that incentivized in this phase, or is it incentivized in another phase, or is it still going on?
Rooftop solar is not a part of this particular program. It may be in others, and I'm not familiar with that. Okay. I would give that to others to respond to you.
Okay. Yes, sir. So what did Dominion give you a goal to achieve in phase 11 that they want to out of this program? Is there some goal, or just, are we open-ended in as many as we can get on board with the program, and we don't know what it's going to cost, but we'll recover it later on? What's the goal or the process?
So, Commissioner, in this particular instance, the existing program was approved by the Commission under phase 7. I believe that was in 2020.
Okay.
And so what the company is applying to do here is basically to streamline it. There's a change in the mix of programs that are in the efficient marketplace. Most notably, the lighting elements have been removed from phase 11, and that's to keep up with or to stay consistent with the federal ISA legislation. So the offering, and this is up to, in this particular case, you look at the participants, this is voluntary. So this is an efficient marketplace. So as individual customers want to adopt and to use these offerings, then it's voluntary for them to make those purchases. And therefore, that's considered being a participant in the program. But that doesn't happen until a customer takes action to purchase a product.
So they really don't have a goal. They're going to do mailers and advertising, et cetera, to try to get people to come on board. They're not aggressively, contacting the customers and doing those kind of things.
And if I will say, yes, they do have, there's a marketplace, an actual website.
Okay.
They'll do mailers, and they actually have a program. I believe they've identified 15 retail locations within the North Carolina jurisdiction to use those stores to actually promote the purchase of these products as well.
Okay. One other question. I see at the bottom of the footnote that the LED lights are no longer in the program. Do they get, does a customer get any kind of incentive to put in place LED lights versus the old mercury bulb lights or whatever? The reason I'm asking that, it's a guy came up to me that's replacing the lighting. He's a lighting distributor in an old chapel, which is a very large chapel at a college. And, they got old mercury bulb lights in the sanctuary, and he's replacing with new LED lights. And he said, in Duke's marketplace, not in Dominion's, that the LED lighting incentive was going away or wasn't as much as it used to be or whatever. What is the basis with this program?
So my understanding is that over time, if you look at how LEDs have evolved over the last, 15 years,
Yes, sir.
that adoption has been very robust, I'll say, in North Carolina.
Right.
So now pretty much the standard is, or the thought is that if a customer is going today to a retail center, they're going to be buying the more efficient LED bulb versus, an old incandescent. So that changeover, the change in the customer's behavior, has occurred. And so there's less of a need for an incentive to get the customer to take that action.
Well, I understand that. I probably wasn't clear. I'm asking about big commercial jobs where they're doing retrofits. Is there incentive in place for that lighting to be replaced with a new LED?
Let me go back. This is a residential
You can tell me
program.
later.
I'd be glad to follow up.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes, sir.
No problem. The other thing is, this cost recovery on number 11, and they're doing the rider based on R8-69. Is there a cap on cost prior to this, or is it just open-ended for Duke or Dominion or whomever to put these EE programs in place and then come back to us later on and say, oh, by the way, it costs X amount of dollars? Is that the way it works? I'm new, so I'm just asking that question.
And Commissioner, you referenced number 11. Were you referencing, I thought I heard said in number 11. Oh, you phase 11.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all
Yes,
right.
sir. I'm sorry.
So, well, and I'm going to talk, in general or specifically rather about this particular program. The costs that are going to be incurred are going to be based on customers' purchase of products. So if there's an adoption or if the company is through this program is offering products that are popular and that the customers are seeing the benefit from, then the customers are going to vote with their dollars and they're going to purchase the products that make sense to them. So I guess in that case, the cost would be open-ended, but it's going to be driven by the perception of the customers as to the value that they're receiving for the purchase of those products.
Okay, very well. Thank you, sir, for answering my questions.
All right, Ms. Kells, if you would, do you have a response to Commissioner Tucker's questions?
Yes, Chairman Mitchell, Andrea Kells with McGuire Woods. I'm here on behalf of Dominion Commissioner Tucker. I just wanted to add a little bit to what Mr. Williamson conveyed to you on a couple of your questions. With regarding to the phase 11, he's right. Dominion does each year when it brings this suite of programs to the Virginia Commission, it's called a phase. And then it gets approved there, and the programs that would be cost effective in North Carolina are brought here for approval. And several of the phase 11 programs were brought here and approved a few months ago. And so this is another one in that phase because it's being brought sort of during this year. But as Mr. Williamson said, you know, programs fall off over time, they end. These are usually set for a certain number of years, and so they roll off. And so while we're at phase 11, there are not, you know, 100 programs out there for, you know, several of the earlier phases have sort of rolled off. And so we don't really have the phase 1 or phase 2 anymore. And then as he also mentioned, a lot of them are getting consolidated. So it's not like you're just continually building up over time. You know, some roll off and some roll on. And then on the sort of goals and targets of the program, in the application, the company did communicate the projected O&M cost, the expenses for the program, that there's no capital cost, there's a certain level of expenses, and provides that at a system level and then at a North Carolina level. And also projected, you know, the savings, the capacity and energy savings that the company hopes to achieve with the program in North Carolina. And so that's in the application. And then when we come in for the rider proceeding, Dominion's riders happen in the summer and fall. The public staff reviews the costs for these programs to make sure they are, you know, been prudently and reasonably incurred. So the cost recovery is a whole separate case there. And so that will be subject to scrutiny here, just as it is in Virginia. And then with the LEDs, the EISA, which I have to check my notes, Energy Independence and Security Act, you know, was phasing out the old light bulbs and things. And so as Mr. Williamson said, you know, they're just not available anymore. There's the reason to have an incentive to encourage folks to buy is not really there as much because that's increasingly all there is to buy. At least at this residential level is what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I was just asking about the commercial level. Well, thank you for those responses. Is there, since there is savings to Dominion, are the savings to Dominion reflected as an offset to the requirement for cost recovery?
That's all captured in the cost recovery case.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
And just to follow up, Commissioner, in my testimony in E22 sub 676 exhibits 2 and 1 and 2, there's a grid that is in there and it has all the Dominion programs and their corresponding phases when they were entered, just for your reference.
Very well. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Any additional questions? Public staff or Dominion? All right, you may sit down, Ms. Kells. Thank you. As a reminder, we've got a motion that would accept the recommendation of public staff. It's been seconded. All in favor indicate with an eye. Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Williamson. All right, we will proceed with public staff item 2.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. I'm Neha Patel with Public Staff's Energy Division. Item 2 is an application by Piedmont Natural Gas Company to adjust and increase its rates and charges for natural gas service in North Carolina. The company states that it intends to implement proposed rates on a temporary basis, subject to refund until January 25th, 2025. Public Staff recommends that the Commission declare the proceeding a general rate case and suspend Piedmont's requested rates for up to 270 days.
Move approval of staff recommendation.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that the item be approved as recommended by the public staff. Questions or discussion? All in favor indicate with an eye. Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. All right, we've got our final items, supplemental item.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Darrell Brown with Public Staff's Accounting Division. I'm presenting supplemental item number 1 under docket number E-22 sub 703, which is a notice of an affiliate transfer of emergency sirens filed by Dominion Energy of North Carolina. The notice requests the Commission's approval of a planned sale of 2 unused emergency sirens from Dominion Energy North Carolina to Dominion Energy Nuclear Connecticut, which is an affiliate of the company, for use at Mill Power Station in Waterford, Connecticut. Public staff has completed its review of the notice, agrees with the net book value of the salary, that the net book value of the salary should be used for the transfer, and recommends the commission's approval of the equipment transfer, subject to the conditions set forth in the proposed order for the commission. Thanks.
Move approval of staff recommendation.
All right, it's moved and seconded that the item be approved as recommended by the public staff. Questions, discussion? Or hearing none, all in favor indicate with an eye. Is there anyone opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much. All right, commission has our minutes from the April 15th staff conference. Need a motion, please?
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor indicate with an eye. Is there anyone opposed? Those minutes are approved. All right, additional business for the commission this morning before we adjourn. Hearing none, we'll be adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. Let's go off the record, please.